Hey everyone, I believe this is live in the Facebook group. I'm just going to check my phone to make sure that things are a clicking and that things are happening here. So yeah, hey, I see me. So, hey, welcome. My name is Alex Barker. I'm going to be talking today about non traditional pharmacist jobs. Sorry about the pause. I was asked by Laura LeCarry, who's in charge of this group, to talk just a little bit about where are these jobs. So, how do I know about this? Well, I founded a company called Happy Farm D, and we got a lot of interest in non traditional careers. And so we went to work, we figured it out, and we've helped now quite a few people get into it. How to find these jobs, how to position yourself. And what I want to share with you today is really answering this question: where are these jobs? I'm going to give you a few simple strategies, a few simple tricks to hopefully include in your ongoing career search so that you can begin this process of not just finding non-traditional jobs, but also applying, getting interviews, and ultimately transitioning. So I wanted to do a quick 5-minute exercise. I'll be honest, I slept in today a little bit, but hopefully you guys are feeling up for this early in the morning. For me, it's 9. Um, but I want to start off with this exercise. So for those of you that are listening live, I think there's a little bit of a delay. Do you mind just posting in the chat that you guys can hear me, that you're getting this? I see my live video on my app here. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing some likes, some responses. Very cool. Feel free to type in the chat. I am more than happy to answer questions as we go along. So, I want to talk about qualifications. When you apply, do you feel like you're qualified to apply to a non-traditional pharmacist job? Do you feel qualified? I'm hoping for a response here. Do you feel qualified? One last time. Any takers? I'm not seeing any comments. That's okay. That's all right. Okay. So when I know a lot of people apply to non-traditional pharmacist jobs, many people say like they don't feel qualified. So I'm going to walk you through a series of questions here to show you why you are qualified. Were you legally qualified to apply to your first job? Were you legally qualified to apply to your first pharmacist job? Some of you may say, yeah, well, I didn't have my degree at the time, but they knew it was coming. The answer is yes. You are legally qualified to apply to that job. Why? What made you qualified for your first job? Your degree, right? Whether it was a bachelor's or a PharmD, you had the degree. You had acquired the knowledge. Didn't mean that you were very good at being a pharmacist. It just meant you had the bottom tier knowledge. So, how did you receive that knowledge? You went to school, you went to education, right? You spent all that money to learn those things that you knew you weren't going to use on the day job. So, did your degree prepare you for your first job? Michelle, thanks for saying no and yes to some of these questions. Appreciate that. And Sarah, I could see your names in the chat, but I can't see it in the app. Most people would say that your education did not adequately prepare you to do the job that you're doing on a day-by-day basis. So your degree allowed you to apply, but it did not prepare you for the job, right? It didn't teach you the minutia of ordering medications, making sure the supply chain is ready, how to appropriately correct conflict in the workplace, how to provide education to a patient so that they actually do what they need to do. Education probably touched on those things, but you really learn in the workplace, right? The degree allowed you to apply, but it didn't prepare you for the job. So you learned as you went, right? I I don't know if I would have trusted, my grandmother when I first started with me. There were some things I overlooked. I had some weird and wacky ideas, but I was willing and I was hungry and I wanted to learn. So I think everyone learns on the job. So my question to you is non-traditional pharmacy still legally pharmacy practice? The answer is yes. Non-traditional pharmacy is still pharmacy practice. So, are you legally qualified to apply for a non-traditional pharmacist job? The answer is yes. But a lot of people say, well, and I saw it earlier here, they're usually looking for experience, right? They're looking for experience. So let me ask you, when you applied to your first job, did you have prior pharmacist experience? No, because you had never been a pharmacist. You had been a pretend pharmacist, which is what I like to call a student, right? And you had experiences through your schooling, but you were never legally qualified to do all of the roles of a pharmacist. You had not the ability to legally qualify or do the job. Because if you did, you'd be in trouble, your manager would be in trouble, the store would be in trouble. So the crux of this problem, this non-traditional pharmacist job problem, is most pharmacists feel unqualified to do the job. They feel unqualified to even apply or send in an application. But the fact is that you are legally qualified to apply to a job. And you have a pharmacist degree and you are able to learn as you go. You have my bachelor's people out there, you have, in modern terms, a doctorate because you have more than 5 years experience. And our PharmDs out there, you are a doctorate. You have the capability of learning on the job. The door is open. My question is will you walk through it? Because what we are practically seeing is many pharmacists in retail, in hospital, in managed care, long-term care, making transitions into other things where they didn't have relevant experience. But the way that anyone makes or begins that transition is by using the past and their accomplishments, their strengths, their passions, their interests and curiosities to move them into that next job. So, what I want to do is I want to talk first about what is traditional pharmacy. So, traditional pharmacy is two things, right? It's community and it's hospital. You could argue that things like Amazon is non traditional, but I would say the company is non traditional, but the role is not. Most roles within the company that Amazon has been hiring is for PillPack, which is doing relatively traditional pharmacy. And we did a job report. If you want to check it out, it's on our YouTube page. It's on our website as well. But we did an in-depth analysis of Q1 of the pharmacy job market. And the vast majority of jobs were community and hospital that were posted. So we're talking, I can't even read that. I need to tell my team to make those those a little bigger. But we're talking like 72% is community, and another like 23, 25% is hospital. So that's pretty meaty. That's a pretty large portion of the job market. So when we say non-traditional roles, let's talk about specifically what we mean. There's a lot of things that don't fit the bill, and there's no way that we can go over everything, but there are some pretty consistent non-traditional roles that are not clinical, that are not in community, not in hospital. So let's talk about some job types. So there are pharma roles, and there's a lot of different types of pharma roles. One of our coaches on our team identified like over 40 different positions that a pharmacist uh, can work into. Oh, thanks for posting the link. So the first main one is regulatory affairs. Regulatory affairs is having to do anything with the job application, or I'm sorry, job application, the drug application before it comes to market. They do work after it comes to market as well. They tend to deal more with the legal ramifications, the applications to the FDA, things like that. And then there is medical affairs. And I like to think of medical affairs as the team that helps the drug come to market to spread the good news of the gospel of the newest drug that's out there. They do a lot of presenting and, well, kind of similar work, honestly, to regulatory affairs, just at a different time frame. That's how I like to think about it. It's not always true, but that's one sector of pharma. And then the other major sector is medical communications or medical writing. Um, you've probably heard about this. This is a becoming more and more popular role. I think because mainly medical medcom is like it's a hybrid of remote work, no patient care. You get to write, you get to learn all the time about new things. So it kind of hits the spot for a lot of people. Um, and it's also a great way to get started as a side hustle. So just to be clear, pharma roles, we consider it to be non-traditional. But that being said, there are a lot of different types. There's a lot of different type of jobs that you can do. There's a lot of leadership opportunities in pharma. There are, I mean, we don't even talk about it very much because most pharmacists aren't interested in it, but sales is a huge opportunity. You don't start off at a high salary, but if you are good at it and you work your way up, you can make a lot of money. So let's talk about some non-traditional roles in outpatient. So compounding. Some people think, oh, this is kind of traditional, but I like to think of it as very non-traditional because you typically are doing not as much dispensing or taking, doing as many prescriptions. Some people are. I like to throw compounding in with IV, yeah, or even nuclear in a way because you're making something typically as a pharmacist. We usually are not very hands-on. So for those of you that like to make things or do those sort of things, compounding is a great way to get started. Specialty, we have found quite a bit of success with many people, specifically in retail, getting into specialty positions. So specialty essentially is any pharmacy role that handles a specialty drug, the kind of drug that typically isn't just dispensed out in a community setting or outpatient setting. Cannabis getting really popular. We actually are working on that role for our career guide. And there's a lot of explosion in cannabis, but be warned, it is a money, it's a profit intense endeavor. There are some really cool things that you can do, but you need to be careful about what organization you join because it's becoming somewhat similar to retail, chain retail. And then health consulting. we are seeing more and more pharmacists either start this on the side or do this with companies. Um, in fact, I just had a friend who had a job offer in Tucson. I always forget if it's Phoenix or Tucson, but it's a startup company that provides cash only consulting. And they wanted a pharmacist on staff to help with medication questions, medical consults, and also lifestyle changes. So there are jobs out there, but it's also very ripe for starting businesses. All right, so just some other ones to make sure we cover them. Academia, research. If I didn't have an inkling for entrepreneurship, I would definitely go into academia. It's a great place. It's a usually positive environment. We have some academic pharmacists on staff. I know Laura LeCarey is a academic as well. So if you love teaching, if you love the idea of students and training the next generation, academia is great. Research as well. We don't see a whole lot of pharmacists really interested in this, but there are a lot of opportunities in clinical research. Um, in fact, we actually helped one pharmacist move out of research and into pharma, but there are a lot of actually side jobs where you are providing not just like protocol creation, protocol analysis, but you're also digging into the data or even coming up with your own research idea. If you have your own research idea about pharmacy, send me a message later. I'd love to chat, love to connect. I'm doing my own research at the moment as well, and it is fun and laborious for me. Okay, so operations. It's another great area. If you feel very detailed oriented and you love processes and procedures, or you wish, one of my friends loves to say, you, if you have problems, it's probably because you didn't have a process. Um, and pharmacists, we are very, we love systems, we love those things, and so getting into operations, if you want to step away from patient care, is a great approach to take. Um, Tech. So not being a technician, probably should have phrased that differently. But informatics is obviously getting a lot of attention lately. There are The market is a lot more flexible, meaning positions come and go pretty quickly. I would say it's not as a secure of a career, but there are a lot of opportunities out there in technology, meaning, if you do lose your job, it's very likely that you're going to find another one. And you're not going to struggle as hard as you were if you were going from chain to chain or hospital to hospital. And then the final main one is public health. We're seeing quite a few people interested in getting their masters, excuse me, or even going into like economic. I can't forget. I'm forgetting what that degree is called, but it's a PhD in economic research in public health. And there's a lot of marketing right now to degrees in public health. I don't think they are necessary for public health. But they can include anything from my friend Tracy Dabbs, who works for the state of Georgia, helping them out with their public health. She's been going crazy because of COVID for the last year and a half. I haven't heard much from her. To working to private consulting institutions where they provide, guidance and protocols on public health policies, advocacy groups. I think you could probably lump in associations with some of these that are not exactly public health institutions, but they're meant to be for the public health. So when we think about non-traditional jobs, those are the kind of ones that we've identified, we tend to think of. There are, of course, a ton of other options that are out there. So I want to give you guys a resource. It's called the Ultimate Career Guide to Pharmacy Career Opportunities. And you can check it out on our website. We also have a downloadable version. Actually, this is a part of a book that I'm writing called Potential. We're in the alpha draft right now, so it's very exciting. It's all about all of the different things that you can do as a pharmacist and how to navigate the job market. But you can download the different career guides that we've been working on. We have about 20 that are finished and published online, and they are very in depth. They go through the pros and the cons of the career. They talk about initial steps to transition. They talk about whether degrees are worth it or not, additional degrees outside of pharmacy, and job descriptions, and lots of other details. So it's heavy reading. So I'd recommend like bookmarking and coming to it later because there's a lot there. And you can always download the PDF later if you'd rather just read it while in bed and you want to read something to, put yourself to sleep. Just kidding. It's very exciting. So now to the question, where are the jobs? Um, and I find that people's approach to job hunting, um, it's not the direction that I would recommend. What I would say is that you need to literally switch the way you're looking for a job. Because what most people do is they type in things like managed care pharmacist position, and then they look for all of the open positions that they can find online. So here's why that's not a great idea. Number one, you are doing the same thing that roughly, we're going to go over some numbers here at the end, but there's about 100,000 pharmacists at any given time looking for another job. That comes from a workforce study done by the AACP, the American Academy of Colleges of Pharmacy. They are doing that very same thing. And so when they apply to that job that you just found, you are now competing with 20 plus people, easily 50, probably more. We just polled on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and we were asking managers like, how many applications do you get? And I believe it was like 40% of people get over 50 applications, as many as over 150. So when everyone else is zigging, you want to zag. um, I can't see your faces, so I have no idea if you're smiling, but I'm going to try to make myself laugh. Hopefully that just makes you think, oh man, this guy's goofy. When everyone is doing one thing, you should try to do something totally different, because going the same way as everyone else is just throwing your hat in the ring. And maybe you are a standout candidate. Maybe you have a ton of experience and you want to apply to that job, and you know that your application is going to rise to the top. Or maybe you have an insider contact, or whatever your strategy is. That's great. That's fine. But I would recommend going a completely different approach, one that is a little bit more strategic and long term. Where do you find the jobs? It's really through two main resources that I'd recommend. One is using company websites, and another one is our strategic partner, Job RX. So when we mean company websites, we mean using Google keywords. And so what, I didn't think this through because I've got a computer over here that I'm presenting on, and I can't really show my screen here. But here's the approach that I would encourage you to take. I was going to try to do it live, but it's not going to work out. So let's say that you live in, actually, you know what? I am going to try. I'm going to try right now. Okay. Y'all can see that, this nonsense of a mess. Let's make my thing full screen here. Okay. I'm looking at my phone. Yeah, you guys can see everything. Okay. So let's say that we want to apply to a medical affairs company. Well, what typically most people do is they type in medical affairs, pharmacist jobs, right? And just like how you'd think, we see a bunch of medical affairs job openings, right? Or people that are probably trying to sell us a degree. Or, oh, hey, look at that. How to become a regulatory affairs pharmacist. We're not selling certifications. But that's cool. That's nice to see. Although this is regulatory affairs, not medical affairs. They're totally different. So right now we see some job openings, we see some information about jobs. And what most people do is they click on this job and okay, we see this and okay, you read about it. All right, now I want to apply. So then they of course make you sign up and blah blah blah. So what I'd recommend you do is instead focus on a company and their needs. So let's type in medical affairs company. Now, just to be clear, there's not a whole lot of medical affairs companies. This is like a broad strategy approach to any career type. Medical affairs is typically within a company structure. It's usually not like a whole company. Okay, so we found an ad for the medical affairs company. Oh, by the way, a nice little tidbit here is that if you type in something and there's an ad in Google, this means that these companies are paying to be seen by you. That is a good sign. It means they're spending money, it means they're growing, and it means that they're looking to sell whatever they have. So I just want to make sure that my screen is being shared in the right way. Okay. There's a slight delay. My bad, guys. So here we've got a company and they've got a ton of information on here. They've got a lot of resources. They've got white papers. And oh, you know what? They're in Georgia. Great. They're in my backyard. And look at that. They even give a name for one of the people. Oh, she's a former MSL. So industry leader providing fair solutions. Great. So this isn't just like they're teaching people how to become medical affairs specialists. They actually provide solutions. So what you'd want to do in this situation is you'd want to learn everything you can about the company. What's their latest news? Have they posted any business related activities? What direction do they look like they're going with their company? What are some of the interesting projects that they're working on? What are some of the things that they've been able to do? Because then you get to understand the company, you get to understand their needs, and ideally, you hopefully can start conversations with people who work at that company, either through helping them accomplish whatever their needs are or finding out what they need to do next. So I'll give you an example. I have a Canadian friend who was a Walmart manager at a store. Really didn't like it. He actually took off like 3 months of administrative leave because of how stressed out he was. And he'd had enough. And so he actually decided to go back and get his PharmD. Canada is about 10 years behind our cycle where we are. He graduated with a BS in pharmacy. And so he went through his PharmD program. And what he had decided to do was he created on his own volition, he created a financial analysis of pharmacogenomic and medical consult financial model. He could explain it better than I could. But he basically used his knowledge. He found information that was online and free that was out there. And he put together like almost like a mini business plan of how a pharma company could partner with pharmacogenomics and medical consults and ultimately sell more of their product. Now, he didn't apply to a job. He just looked on websites, not like this one, but others, and he dug around and he looked what he wondered what were the questions and the projects that people were working on. How could I create something that would be of value to another person? This is a really long-term strategy and pretty intensive, but he's an intense guy. And so that's what he did. And he shared that project. And not only did he get, he actually, he didn't think he'd want the job, but he actually became an MSL. No certification, no extra degree, no experience, just Walmart manager pharmacist who was driven, figured out some things, put together a report, talked with some people, and learned how to appropriately sell himself. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. So that is the strategy to find jobs. Let me, okay. I'm back on target. It involves research and it involves flipping the switch. Instead of thinking about your needs for an immediate job, you think about how can I find out what the needs are of a company and how can I meet those needs? When you start digging around, even in your own local area, you're going to begin to find there's a ton of problems out there, and many of them are problems that pharmacists can figure out. And so I wanted to just end on some facts about the job market because, well, you need to know what's coming. There's 14,000 graduates entering the market. They mostly graduated last week, and many of them have jobs. I'd make a bold statement to claim that probably about 60% of them already have a job lined up, either a residency or a job offer. And there's no hard data yet on this, but anecdotally, I can say that the vast majority of them are not vast majority. Those that remain that don't have a job offer are finding it harder and harder just to get an entry-level job. And many of the jobs that were created, as in the last couple of months, are part-time positions. We need to get that message out there to the next generation because we've already seen a huge decline in interest in pharmacy, and that's decreasing the applications because of how hard the job market is. But on top of that, we need to tell them, hey, look, when you get a job, you may, the average salary right now is still 121, 23, but please realize that most of the available jobs out there are part-time. We're talking about 40% in quarter 1 of this year. At any given time, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 3,500 are unemployed. And also, according to them, we're losing about 1,000 jobs every year in the marketplace. And like I alluded to before, 118,000 pharmacists are looking for a job. That is insane. 35.8% was the actual figure from that report. And as we alluded to from that report with JobRx, we're talking 73% were community, 25% were health systems, and then 1% were non-traditional. Now, I do think that JobRx needs to up its game in using some better filters to find those non-traditional jobs. But what I'd highly recommend you do is you want to be the first. When you apply to a job, you don't want to be the middle or you don't want to be the middle person to find out when that job is opening. You want to be one of the first. And what I do like about JobRx is that their site is updated daily and they pull jobs straight from the employer. They don't go to Indeed, they don't go to other websites. They go straight to the employer, pull that information in. And so what you're able to do with it is use notifications to automatically notify you through computer notifications. So you know how you get a notification sometime to like, you need to update your driver. I hate those. But you can get those notifications straight to your desktop, laptop, and I believe mobile device. And it'll tell you, hey, there is an industry job available. There is a medical affairs job or a managed care job or whatever it is that you're looking for. Um, and so I highly recommend that you do that. And I think that their filters are getting better so that that number will increase. Okay. Whew. Just how I'd hope. 30 minutes. I feel really good about that. Um, just to recap, if in case you missed it, for those of you, I know some people are hopping in and out. There are non-traditional jobs out there. Where are they? You have to find the company first. You do the research and you're more likely to be able to approach them without feeling sleazy when networking. You're more likely to be considered when interviewing for a position. And it means not looking for just open jobs because anyone can do that. And as we've established, 118,000 pharmacists are doing that right now. So don't go that approach. Find the companies that are out there because even if you just start with one. So, for example, what I've heard people say things like, well, why do that? Because they're not going to have a job opening, right? What if they have nothing for a pharmacist? Well, number one, you don't know that. You don't know what that company is planning. You don't know what their budget looks like in the coming year. You don't know what they're thinking about what new position needs to be hired. Because as we've already, every pharmacist knows we're understaffed, right? We could always use more people, and yet the jobs don't seem available. So you don't know what you don't know. Also, research is pretty clear on this. The career development gurus that research this and have PhDs on this, um, they have found that many jobs, in fact, the majority of jobs when job seeking don't come from your first degree network. So the people that you know, right? Your alumni buddies, the gal down the street, a patient. The majority of jobs come from your second degree network, the people who know other people. They're 1 degree separated from them, right? You don't know them, but you know a person who knows that person. And when you are researching a company, and like let's say we wanted to do that example of medical affairs, the medical affairs company. You call them up, you say, "Hey, I've been doing this research. I had these thoughts. I had questions for you. I wonder if you could just chat." And you chat with them and they say, "You know what? We don't have a position. We just hired someone, but you know what? I know someone else who knows someone else who knows someone else," right? And that's how those things naturally happen. I would encourage you to get started today because you don't want to wait on a strategy like this because there are so many other people getting into the workforce. There's so many people looking for the same opportunity like you. It just takes to get started. I'll take just a few moments for questions if anyone has any. If not, totally don't mind scooting out here because we're actually celebrating Mother's Day today. I know it's a few weeks behind, extenuating circumstances, okay? All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so thank you everyone for tuning in and listening. I hope this was helpful. I can gladly answer questions if you post a comment later. More than happy to help out any way I can. Thanks and have a great weekend, everybody.